Hello, everyone. Today we have an awesome program. I am so excited to share with you these professional hypnotists, professional hypnotherapists who are going to be having a conversation with us right here in the Hypnosis Roundtable. This will be an awesome episode, and I'm sure that by the end of it, you're going to be speechless, like, wow, this is so awesome. I didn't even know this existed. Look what I can accomplish in my life, right? That's what you're going to be. This is really, really awesome. So let me tell you a little bit about who we have here today. We have with us Patricia Scott. Now, Patricia and I go back at least, I would say, roughly 30 years, I would say. When I first started practicing hypnosis, she was one of the first persons I met in the field at a conference. And I have a ton of admiration for Patricia over the years, not 1 or 2 years, 30 years. I've been observing her work, and I see her pretty much every year at a couple of conferences, and she's always shining, always brilliant. Her classes are always the most popular, just so you know. Her, it's always, she's the Patricia Scott, the one, the famous one. So she has gotten every award in the field of hypnotherapy. I'm talking like she's a member of all the major societies, the medical and dental society. I mean, she's all over the place. If you want to know something about hypnotherapy, Patty Scott is the woman to talk to. And you're going to see what I mean in just a moment, because we're going to be talking to her. But that's not all. We also have with us Carrie Logan. Carrie Logan is in the house. Carrie is also a professional hypnotist, and she brings a wealth of knowledge and information. She knows all about how to work with relationship issues. She knows all about narcissism. She's all over the place. Extremely talented, quite successful, 20 plus years as a professional hypnotist. So you want to know something about hypnosis, relationships, narcissism, that kind of thing? The person to talk to is Carrie Logan, and she's here today. And if that's not enough, we also have with us today Eugene Berezin. Eugene is an awesome new friendship that we have made. I'm so happy to have met Eugene. Him and I have been talking for a couple of days on how to set this whole thing up. He has been a delight to work with, giving us a lot of ideas. Also a professional hypnotist, quite well trained, quite a professional. And Eugene is going to do us a very, very special service today. Eugene is going to be listening to what we have to say, and he's going to keep us honest. If we say something off topic, he's going to get on us and say, hey, explain that again. I don't get that. And he knows what he's talking about, so we cannot get past him, because he's the man. When it comes to hypnosis, when it comes to hypnotherapy, nothing gets past him. So he's going to be listening and keeping us sharp. Thank you, Eugene, and welcome. So, Patricia, knowing you for 30 years, you're referencing the business. Whenever anybody wants to know anything about hypnosis, the person to ask is Patricia Scott. I want to ask you a question, and I'm sure it's a question that you have heard more than once in your life. What is hypnosis? Can you tell me?
Ooh. I always say, if you ask 100 hypnotists what is hypnosis, you'll get 100 different answers. I like to, I was doing it before I knew academically the definitions, which are pretty boring in my mind. They're interesting to study. But to me, the best way that I describe hypnosis, and it's never exactly the same each time, but I think of it as concentrated, focused attention that allows you to focus on, in the now moment, what's going to get you the best result for whatever's going on, to the exclusion of all that other junk that would get in the way. That's kind of the way I like to think of it. So what I've been saying for many years is my goal in life is to be in hypnosis 24 hours a day, because that way you're in the moment, making the most of whatever's happening, and using all your resources.
Hey, I saw Eugene shifting in the chair. What about this idea of being in hypnosis 24 hours a day, Eugene? I saw you shifting. Something is off there. What is it?
I'm curious, because not often, but sometimes people a little bit nervous. They said, like, what if I go into like hypnosis? Because based on what we see on the on the TV or on the TV show. Sometimes it is very much inaccurate, right? What's going on in the therapy room. But people sometimes ask, like, what if I get stuck in a trance? What if I can't like wake up in a way? So is it a
So
thing?
Patricia, can you get stuck in trance? I mean, when you talk about being in hypnosis, because you
24
mentioned
hours.
being here and now, I think I think I understood what you meant. But can you get stuck in hypnosis? Is that dangerous?
Well, as far as if someone is guiding you through a hypnotic process, no, you can't get stuck because you have to cooperate and you have to have the will and the want to be hypnotized. You have to give permission for someone and follow their instructions if you're being hypnotized by someone. If you're doing self-hypnosis, your creative, what I call unconscious, your creative higher intelligence within you will still at some point know that you need to take care of something else in the outside realm. You know, if you're talking about the state of being in a relaxed hypnotic state with your eyes closed, you can't get stuck there because you have that intelligence inside that always is going to take care of you and alert you to anything that needs your attention.
Eugene, she mentioned the higher intelligence. What is the higher intelligence?
Well, for the higher intelligence, right? If we talk about in terms of psychology and neuroscience or psychotherapy approach, for me personally, it is your the sense of your true self, and it comes from internal family system definition. So meaning your brain is created in such a really smart, amazing way that it will activate through. I'm not gonna bore you with like different areas of the brain, right? But we have quite a few alarm systems. For example, like if something is urgent happening, like a loud sound or something uneasy, you can wake up in the middle of the night and like you don't know how you woke up. Like you smell gas or like there's a fire alarm, you will be automatically like get alert. You know, like hypnosis aside, right? Even when you're in deep sleep, like that will happen. So this is my understanding of higher intelligence, and this is a combination of like conscious and subconscious mind, like and our nervous system as a whole. When all systems working well together, mind system, nervous system, or nervous systems, should I say?
So, Carrie, this idea of higher intelligence, do we all have a higher intelligence?
Yes. And I was about to raise my hand, like, I can explain this. So, all of us have a soul, and our soul is immortal. We know that from past lives and lives between lives. You have that soul that goes into a different vessel, different lifetimes. And so, you have your higher self, your soul, but then you have your spirit, which is part of your consciousness in this specific lifetime. Okay. And so what she's pretty much saying is when you're in that state, you can access your soul, your higher self, as well as your spirit to help solve problems, to get answers, to find solutions of what is keeping you stuck in this lifetime.
I love that, Patricia. So, if I understood Carrie correctly, we can all access this higher self, this higher intelligence, and actually solve human everyday problems. Has that been your experience, Patricia? Have you been able to help people solve problems?
Absolutely. The only caveat that I would make to what wonderful Carrie said is that we have to work within the belief systems of our clients when we're as hypnotists. As human beings, those of us that discovered, like I said, that what I now call higher intelligence kind of accidentally just through life experiences, it still may be for each person that ever listens to this or thinks about these kind of things can be a different interpretation. So I would probably say, using words like soul, spirit, past lives, all these things are wonderful to study and know as hypnotists. as someone who's doing self-discovery, maybe just wanting to delve into how can hypnosis just help me, that person is going to expand their belief systems in ways that match up to what's comfortable for them. So that's the only thing that I would say. I believe that within our DNA, even in our inner self, and just by virtue of the way we are here as human beings having this experience, that even people that I've had as clients that don't believe in the afterlife, don't believe in past lives, don't believe in anything. You live, you die, that's it. I've literally had people like that. And the state of hypnosis still tends to tap into something that even those people, without exception, say, I know I got something. I got my answer. I got a sense or a feeling or a shift. And I know that didn't really come from me, from my human self. So they're willing to accept whatever it is. And sometimes they don't want to put a label on it. And I'm not a labels person anyway, so I let them interpret it, but they still can have that experience. It's a part of our makeup that everyone can tap into, what I just refer to generically for purposes of this as our higher inner intelligence. But it does tap into whatever that is.
So,
well,
Eugene,
a lot of times I say it's that inner voice of wisdom that knows you best, like that little voice that says when you're in an argument, hey, maybe you shouldn't say that because you'll destroy the relationship. Hey, maybe you really should, not eat that because you're trying to lose weight and you want to make a healthier choice. These little voices pop in our head that give us advice, wisdom. And so I tell people, listen to that. That's your inner, the part that's your cheerleader. Think about it as your cheerleader that wants the best of you and for you.
Eugene, I want to ask you, is it important for a hypnotist to work within the context of the client's belief, or should we just tell them what we believe and we're going to work with what I believe because I say so? What is the right way to work with a client, Eugene?
In my opinion and in my practice, personally, you can be hypnotized against your will, right? And why am I saying this? Is because if I start saying something that client doesn't believe, for example, past life regressions, right? I can tell the client that, hey, seems like it is a deeply spiritual problem. How about we go into past life? But if my client doesn't believe in past lives, for like, I don't know, maybe they're not religious, maybe their religion doesn't acknowledge or doesn't accept reincarnation in past lives, then I like the subconscious mind will resist because our brain will preserve safety most and foremost, right? And when we try to interject a foreign belief or a foreign system into anybody's mind, our mind is a system, and every system will do absolutely everything to protect its safety. So when we are working against clients' belief, then we will trigger unnecessary alarm, unnecessary resistance, and the client at the end of the day may not get the transformation. This is why it is important to work with clients' beliefs and also be aware of clients' trauma. If somebody has massive religious trauma and they're not ready to dive into more spiritually inclined work, so I would be really, really careful with that versus somebody who is deeply spiritual or deeply open and they would like to have those profound transpersonal spiritual experiences during hypnosis, which is absolutely possible, then I know I can align myself well and also understand like where should I or shouldn't go, because hypnotherapy is not necessarily a platform or a place where we start theological debates, because we might understand this source of whole reality a little different. And our job at the end of the day is client's transformation and help the client by working with the belief system is essential.
There you go. So Patricia and Eugene agree, which means Patricia gets an extra point today. So our job at the end of the day is client transformation. I love the way Eugene said that, which means our job is to help the client achieve their objectives in their terms. We're not there to tell them how to believe. Fantastic. So, Patricia, one final question for you. I'm curious. So, you're telling me that we can hypnotize a person, access this, all these levels of the mind and so forth, and we can help clients achieve their goals. What sorts of problems can we help them resolve with hypnosis?
Oh my goodness. And that's a big question. And my real honest answer is anything that the client uses their mind for. And what don't we use our mind for? We can help with sleep. We can have any physical. My specialty is medical hypnotherapy. I was doing unexpectedly, and I didn't understand yet what I was doing, but fixing some things physically in myself with my mind, without before I even knew hypnosis, as a career or as a formal training. Physical things, emotional things, energetic shifts, belief systems, if they're limiting us, if there's something that was installed when we were small children, when we were basically in an open hypnotic state up until they say about 5, 6, 7, 8, we're just like an open vessel being programmed. And children can get programmed with things that sometimes decades later before they realize something's in there that's been limiting my life. And I got a sense that something's stopping me. I don't even know what it is. So it can be things that were, we were programmed, for lack of a better word, when we're younger. To me, anything you use your mind for, sports performance, academic performance. I was in show business for 20 years before I got into hypnosis. So my 20s and 30s, before I was studying this, from books, and didn't have the internet back then, from books. And there were things I was doing just from reading the books and tapping in. There was something inside of me said, I think there's more. There's something more here that I can do something about this problem or about this physical thing that's happening. And I would read and I would study and I would practice. And I was doing things that were that blew people's minds. They go, how'd you do that? I said, I applied my mind. I suspended judgment and doubting just long enough to see if this might work. I would say, can't hurt, might help. And every time I did that, amazing things happened. And that's what ultimately drew me to this field. I didn't plan to become a hypnotist, but I was already doing it. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So you're saying that we can pretty much make any changes that have to do with us, with our minds. In other words, if it's about me, we can change using hypnosis. It would be more difficult to change another person, right? But we can change us with hypnosis. Is that what you're saying?
Right. If it's possible. I mean, obviously not everything is possible, but usually way more than our human limited mind, I call it, believes. I call the unconscious the unlimited mind. And we can then, by us knowing these things and learning them, we can teach other people how to use their mind. We can't change them. We can help them access resources and find their own answers, find their own solutions, find their own ways to overcome their challenges that are right for them. Like Eugene said, that client-centered hypnosis that's been most of this century and halfway into the last one that has evolved is not about, I'm going to do something to you, like the stage hypnotists. It's about, I'm going to help you and facilitate and guide you and teach you how to talk to your inner mind in ways that can help you to access the miracle that we all are.
So would that extend to things like fear and anxiety?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm glad you said that.
Every emotion has a purpose in the right context. Okay. But if it's something that starts limiting your life, that's when we can use this kind of work, intentional hypnosis, because there is accidental hypnosis too. There's unintentional hypnosis. Trauma creates instant hypnosis, So we can use these things to help a fear or a PTSD. It's great for all these things because once it starts interfering with quality of life, your mind can just start to reevaluate and rebalance and reintegrate and all of these wonderful things to put it in the right perspective so that your mind now, when you think about that thing, has a better, more workable approach, a better perception that causes a different emotion, that causes then different behaviors. It's all connected. Everything affects everything else.
Fantastic. And the reason why I ask you about fear and anxiety is because Carrie, as you know, is here with us. And, Carrie after the pandemic, I think that during the pandemic, which wasn't that long ago after all, I think the whole world experienced fear and anxiety at a whole different level, at levels that I don't think were common before the pandemic, right? Initially, during the pandemic, everybody was in fear. There was anxiety all over the place. Nobody knew what was going on. So I think that we became so much more aware of what fear and anxiety are after the pandemic. And I know that you are an expert in the topic of fear and anxiety, and particularly the use of hypnosis to help people out of fear and anxiety. So I'd like to ask you, what is up with fear and anxiety? Can you give us can you explain to us? And what I'm particularly interested in finding out is if a person is listening to us right now and they live in fear, they're anxious, and that anxiety is interfering with the quality of their lives, can I use hypnosis to help them? That's what I'd like to understand from you.
Yes, you can 100%, because I really feel that when COVID happened, everyone on the planet got traumatized. We couldn't get toilet paper. You go to the grocery store, there was out of your favorite products. People were hoarding products. A lot of people got stuck in fear and anxiety of, is there going to be enough? Is this the end of the world? I mean, people were spiraling down. And so for me, when anyone comes to talk to me, the pre-talk is the most important. Because one, I need to figure out where their set point is. And
Wait, hold on just a second. Eugene, what the heck is a pre-talk?
Yeah. So I think it's important to understand like the stages of like hypnosis or hypnotic session. And we often do kind of like pre-consultation, not pre-session, but when we sit down with a client and we identify the goal, what they want to achieve. We identify what they tried before. We, depending on the method that we're using, because there's so many different ways to do like hypnosis. Let's say if you're providing experience with like internal safe place, you might ask your client, what does your safe place look like, or where would you want to end up? And this is pre-talk. Pre-talk is very different from talk therapy because it is a part of therapeutic or change process, because I would argue hypnosis starts happening during pre-talk.
Okay, so what you mean to tell me is that when a client comes into the hypnotist's office, we don't go immediately into hypnosis and then I have no idea what's going on. What you're telling me is that there's a whole conversation prior to the hypnotic induction, the process of hypnosis, and that conversation is part of the preparation for the hypnotic process. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and
All right.
I think for us and for the client is and it's such a great opportunity. For example, we all like, and I don't know, like there are different schools of hypnosis. I always heard that the more involved the client is in hypnosis, like they're speaking or they're moving their hands, the better they are at hypnosis. But I had a client who said, like, don't talk, don't ask me to do anything. I'm in such a deep transformation when I'm just by myself. Please don't make me move my arms or speak. Like I will tell you after, or like consultation after the hypnosis. So, and that worked really well because when we did, before, in the sessions when he didn't let me know, I would ask, oh, like, can you say what you're saying? Like, can you describe this? Can you move your arm? Can you move that arm? And then client just say, hey, like, can we not do that? Can I just be in hypnosis because it's so much more conducive to me? And it worked well. So it's a kind of like two-way straight relationship.
Carrie, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to point this out. I loved what Eugene said. The pre-talk is the talk that happens prior to hypnosis, but it is not the same thing as talk therapy. I loved your clarification. So when a person goes to see their psychotherapist and they do talk therapy, it's a whole different process. We don't do that. We're hypnotists. But we do talk to the person before the hypnotic process for a certain purpose, to get to know what they want, what they're looking for, and also to find out if there's a better way to hypnotize them. Some people are more visual, whatever the case might be. So there's conversation that happens prior to hypnosis, but that's not the same thing as talk therapy. I love the way you expressed that. Thank you, Eugene. Carrie, sorry about the interruption. Please continue. So you're telling me that during the pre-talk, you're saying something about the pre-talk?
So why the pre-talk to me is so important is I want to find out what they want. So I look at it as they're at point A and I want to get them to point B. And I love to use their words. And it allows me to remove the negative words like, I think I'm not good enough. I'm stupid. I'm unworthy. I'm disgusted with my body. Whatever it is, I use the words that they give me. So then I can remove the negative and then I plant the positive. Well, how do you want to feel? What are the thoughts you want to think about yourself? If you experienced a day in your life right now, close your eyes, how would that day be where you were happy and content and satisfied with life, where you were grounded, balanced, and centered? How would that be for you? How would you go throughout your day? What would you hear people say to you? What are the thoughts you'd say to yourself? How do you feel inside your body? And I would listen to their words because, like you said, some people are visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. And so I have up on my board a list of those words that I can use that helps me. And then what I do is I explain to them, this is where your set point in your mind is at. You're stuck at fear and anxiety. And I tell them that this has been clinically proven by Dr. David Hawkins, who did the map of human consciousness. This is where your vibrational set point is because we live in a world of energy, frequency, and vibration. And my job is to get you up to courage, to we have the courage to change. And I want all the things that you say you want, where you want to be content with life, you want to be happy with life. When you go to work, you're experiencing peace, you're experiencing joy instead of anxiety or fear that you're going to lose your job. I want the best version of you to come out. And in the pre-talk, if I feel like you need a parts therapy where you have some old wounds where your parents told you were stupid your whole life, well, let's clear that. Let's work on that. Let's, connect with that inner child, and you're going to be its protector. You're going to be its guardian, just like internal family systems. And I always say, any parts that are in the background listening now or any other time can join this main personality because we want to be whole. We want to be whole again. We want to be a family, and home is where the heart is. We live behind our eyes. And I really speak to that, to where I place that opportunity where those parts that are on the fence, that are questioning, is this possible? It can be possible. And I've had people listen 10 times, 20 times, but when it happens and it clicks, they're like, holy cow. That was amazing. That was impressive. And that's why I always tell people, I am the tour guide. You're the one taking the journey. And, and you're going to have to do the work. That's why I record everything I do. And I tell people, listen to it for 28 to 30 days. Because I don't want to give you a Band-Aid. I want to give you a gold medal. I want this to get wired into your subconscious mind. I want to deaden, deactivate the negative parts of yourself, the ways you think, and I want to really ingrain, create the new positive ones where life is beautiful, life is good. You're happy, you're content, you're thriving. I want you to see it, feel it, believe it, imagine it, and be congruent with it so then you become it. It becomes your reality. Just like Patricia was saying, I am living that dream. It's not make believe anymore. I have become it. I embody it.
Carrie, I do have a question. So you said that you make recordings for your clients and they're listening for 30 days. But let's say if somebody is considering hypnosis, how many sessions are like in general are enough for transformation, or if you have a number or maybe something that you have witnessed in your experience, what person can expect, because it is quite different from other forms of therapy. But also, I don't want people to think that it is like it is some sort of snake oil magic, magic treatment that you just listen to the recordings, or you go and see hypnotherapists once and all of your problems would go away. So what can you say about that?
I think that's lovely. So it's not
Yeah.
magic, it's a therapeutic modality on its own. It has its own processes, its own modality, its own way of doing things. So it's not magic. And I love the way you said that. What about that, Carrie? Is it magic or a therapeutic modality?
It is a therapeutic modality. And the best way I describe it is when you first see me, I'm creating a new blueprint. And think about building a house. I throw in all these suggestions on the first recording, and I'm going to see what you grab. And so when you come back and see me, I have this piece of paper that has all the things you wanted to work on. And I'll ask you, so how are you with the anxiety? How are the negative voices in your head? How do you feel about yourself? Have you, let's say, lost any weight? Are your relationships better? Have you set healthy boundaries? Are you speaking your truth now? Do you have the confidence to speak up and stand up for yourself? What has changed? And it's so beautiful when I do that, because people don't realize when they actually change and transform. They'll go, oh my God, I didn't know I was doing that. Oh yeah, that I used to eat a pint of ice cream every night, and that same pint has been in my freezer for what, a month now. And I still eat the ice cream, but I only have like 1 or 2 or 3 bites. And then I'm like, oh, I'm satisfied, I'm good. And I put it back. I never could have done that before, ever. Like the candy bowl at my work that sits there, it would always call my name. Now I see it and I just walk on by. I simply forgot about it. I hear those stories all the time. And so I look at us as we are onions. We have so many layers, and you peel away a layer and then something comes up. Something else will bubble to the surface. You think about that iceberg. We only see 10% on the top, but the 90% is down below. And so when we chip away at that first part, it's really raw and hard. But then the body integrates, the nervous system rebalances, and then a new surface floats up. And you look at that with new eyes, fresh eyes, and you examine it, you chip away at it, you let the body process, integrate, and then a new one floats on up. And you'll get to, it's beautiful, because you'll get to this place where it's like, wow, you do see life differently. You do feel life differently. It's not magic. It's, healing happening in layers, and it happens in its own way and in its own time.
Yeah, I love that explanation. And Patricia, you're listening there, and I'm curious what you would have to say about this. I remember reading a book a few years ago by a psychiatrist that used to work right down the road here at Mount Sinai Hospital. His name was Brian Wise, Dr. Wise, and he wrote this book talking about past lives and a bunch of other things. But what's interesting about that book is that he mostly relates his experiences with one particular patient, whom he says in the book he worked with for 1.5 years, twice a week, doing conventional psychotherapy. The patient suffered from anxiety, according to him in the book. They did psychotherapy twice a week for 1.5 years, and there was absolutely no improvement. And then he went to see someone that Patricia and I know, Jerry Kine, and learned how to hypnotize, and suggested to her, look, I can hypnotize you and maybe we can get somewhere with this. And the rest is history. He became extremely well known as a result of those series of books that he published. And the point that I'm making is sometimes a person comes to see a hypnotist and they say, oh, do I really need 3 sessions, 5 sessions, whatever the case is, right? And they say, well, let me ask you, what are the alternatives? Like you mentioned, you're 45 years of age and you've been eating the whole tub of ice cream every night, and that hasn't gone away. And Brian Wise says that he was doing psychotherapy for 1.5 years, twice a week. So you think that 10 sessions is too much? I don't know. So what are your thoughts on that, Patricia?
On number of sessions?
Yeah. Does it take too long? Is it short? Is it quick? Is it magic?
Yeah, I with a new client, I always want at least a 3-session program, I call it, for a lot of things, more than I would have thought when I first started doing this 34 years ago. Many things are cleared up, sometimes in the first session, but I still want that space of time to keep reintegrating and make sure that person at the end of that space of time, that just seemed like the right amount of time for somebody to get the confidence and to believe that this really isn't just something that's, I feel better in your office, but then tomorrow or next week, I go back to whatever I felt before. So again, just like Carrie said, we're the tour guide. We're teaching them how to replicate and how to keep the momentum going once we've set that foundation in that first session, and then we can show them how to keep correcting course on their own themselves. And there's all kinds of techniques I'm sure we all have, and I've developed some about to teach that client. When this happens, that used to take you off into the ice cream or whatever it is, when those thoughts start, here's what you're going to do. And then you get them practicing between sessions. So I like at least a 3-session program, but I'll tell you, I was trained early, 34 years ago, pretty much at the beginning of my career, that fibromyalgia and IBS takes 12 sessions. And it's someone you probably know, Melissa Roth, was the one I took this training from. Yeah. So I had someone that came in specifically for IBS. He'd been suffering with it for years. And he came in and I had him signed up for 12 sessions. The first session, I did like a timeline type of technique with him. He came back the second session and announces to me as he walks in, my IBS is gone. Now, my hypnotist brain is going, oh, really? Let's see what's going on now before we do. But, outwardly, I'm like, wow, well, let's see what's going on. Come and tell me what's happening. And we did a session on some other things. He said all his symptoms were gone. 2 or 3 weeks later, he said he'd been to his doctor. All the symptoms were gone. And what I realized in hindsight had happened in that timeline, he had come back from the process we did, and he had one of those aha moments in that very first session where he announced to me when he came up out of the hypnotic experience, he said, I just realized something. And those of us that are hypnotists, we love it when our client says that. I just realized something. Now, I didn't talk about anything to do with anything that he had the experience with. I like the permissive style, the open, abstract hypnosis. So I just let him go and let his mind figure out what he needed to discover. What he discovered was, he says, I just realized I had been carrying around extreme anger over my ex-wife. Now, he'd never even mentioned an ex-wife. He had a new lady that he was getting ready to get married to, he was madly in love with. It didn't even come up. Anger never even came up. And that's what did it. We finished the 12 sessions on a whole lot of other things. It never came back. And I actually saw him about every 2 or 3 years, he'd come back for something else. The IBS was gone in the first session. So we don't know. We can't know what's going to be the thing for the person. Even if we know the problem, they might think they know the solution. It may not be even what the problem is.
And I want to make a comment there. From a medical perspective, irritable bowel syndrome (IBS) is considered to be chronic, and so a person would be conventionally stuck with medications, anti-inflammatories, and other things. And from what I understand, it's terribly uncomfortable because even something as simple as a road trip, it becomes a problem because with the colon being irritable, they never know when they might have to run to a restroom. So the quality of life for the person living with IBS decreases sharply. So what if it took 12 sessions or 20 or 50 sessions? Is it better than a chronic condition and you cannot even go on a road trip? I'm a little peculiar with this conversation about number of sessions because, if it took 10 sessions, 20 sessions, 50 sessions, dude, what's the alternative? I'm okay with 12 sessions or 50 sessions because I know for a fact the alternative is not much better. You're going to live with it without what a good hypnotherapist can help you achieve. You're stuck with a chronic condition, and here at least we can improve on it. At the very least, we can improve on it. So I don't think the number of sessions really matters. I tell people, how long does it take? I say until we're done. And that's my approach. And you have a different approach, and I appreciate that. You tell people 3 sessions. That's fantastic. Eugene, how about you?
Minimum of 3. Minimum of 3. Yeah.
Yeah, minimum of 3. Okay, no, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, that's what you said. Minimum of 3. I appreciate that. How about you, Eugene? What about how long does it take?
So, in order for like a specific number of session, I have a couple of different approaches. There is and don't quote me on that. Like I should have done my googling beforehand. But there is a study that conducted on hypnotherapy that according to that document, according to that research, that at least 6 sessions is required for more or less sustainable change. Again, from my understanding of like psychotherapy in general, many psychotherapy modalities, they do have like a kind of milestones. Some modalities have like 12 sessions, some modalities have 16 sessions, 14 sessions, and those are normally quick acting behavioral therapies, like cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, you name it. There are so many of them. And also when I work with a client, I say that your experience, your mind system, your nervous system is uniquely yours. So for you, you might have the relief and the transformation in your first and second session. But then I would invite you to continue the journey for 6 sessions. So if you have relief and realization that it help you, so the rest of the sessions are more so where you can actually strengthen positive changes. So it's not about therapy or therapeutic modalities, but rather strengthening the quality of self, embodying more of like self energy, self agency, self leadership. And after the session 6, we can reevaluate. Like, do you need this program to continue? And another approach that I also like to use is problem oriented approach, because when person comes to me and let's say we work on like pain management, for example, but then they start talking about like like family problems that they saw, like relatives who passed away, and that invoke guilt, then it's a different approach. So like it can be a scope creep. I can say, hey, looks like we're done with the pain, but looks like there's something else your subconscious mind wants to explore. Would you be open to open up our sessions to explore those modalities as well? So I don't think there's a strict number, because again, everybody's brain and nervous system and mind system is unique, and everybody's experience is unique. But I like a good number for me personally. It's between 4 and 6 sessions.
Fantastic. Beautiful. Carrie, one of the areas that you're well known for in the field of hypnotherapy is this whole area of narcissism, relationships, abuse, that the whole area that is so painful and so uncomfortable for so many people. And I heard Patty say that one of her clients came to see her for IBS, and it turned out that he was holding on to anger in reference to his ex-wife. Now, as an expert in this whole notion of narcissism and all these other relationship issues, I'd like for you to comment on that. What happens there? Why is it that we can be married to somebody, presumably because we love them, and then somehow we're not together anymore, and that can actually be so painful that it generates an illness? Can you comment on that a little bit?
Well, the best book that I have found to unpack that is called The Secret Language of Your Body. It is way better than the book by Louise Hayes. I'm sure you guys know, but she talks about the probable cause, and she actually tells what that condition was created from. Was it out of anger, bitterness, resentment? And she gives you methods of how to clear it. Now, if a person isn't open-minded to connecting to divine healing intelligence, because they're like, I don't believe in that woo-woo stuff, fine. But at least when they have that condition and I raise the probable cause to them, they're like, you're right. I do have bitterness towards this person. I do have resentment. And I said, okay. But then what I help them understand is, because I am also a human consciousness guide, as I help them understand, can you separate yourself from the human experience and into the soul lesson? Because that person was your teacher. And you got to look at it as, what were they here to teach you in a way? Okay. So when you look at a narcissistic person, that narcissist is here to teach you to watch the red flags. Don't dismiss the red flags. To not allow them to love bomb you. To notice when someone is trying to love bomb you, and why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? And really listen to what they say, because they'll say one thing, but their actions are completely different. You got to learn all those signs, like what is trauma bonding relationships, what is gaslighting, what is projection, what is dismissive, how do they dismiss you? Learn all that terminology, because you probably grew up in a home where it was very toxic, it was very dysfunctional, and everyone says, some say yes and some say no, because who doesn't love being love bombed? Who doesn't love, have admiration and, oh, you're the most wonderful thing, I've ever found. But most people, we just jump into the physical relationship before forming the emotional connection, the emotional relationship. And once you form that physical one, you really can't go back. You can't backpedal. You've already dived into the deep end of the ocean. And so when I work with people that are recovering from narcissistic abuse, what I'm really doing is helping them, one, understand the walls that they built, the walls of protection, and how to dismantle them. I help them regain their confidence and their self-worth. And I have them realize that that person was in my life to teach me that I deserve more. I am good enough. I am lovable. I'm no longer going to take breadcrumbs. I've worked with women that literally have codependency issues where they'll just pick up any lost puppy they can find. And I did have one client like that, to where she literally lost her voice and thought something was wrong with her and went to the doctor, did all these studies. Her therapist said the same exact thing as me, where I said, well, thank God you developed that condition, because it prevented you from going out to find another lost puppy. And she was like, ah. And so I really work on people realizing that, no, I am worth so much more. And that person was trying to help me recognize and realize my value and my worth, because I was settling for less, settling for someone that cheated on me, lied to me, gaslit me, used all my money and spent everything. I lost every penny because of that person. So I hear all these pain stories, but I want them to learn the lesson within the pain, because if you don't, you're going to keep repeating the same cycle. A different face, a different person, a different body, but the same exact scenario over and over and over. You've got to break the pattern.
Fantastic. Wow, that is, and if you're listening to us right now and you identify with this idea of narcissistic abuse or relationship pain, my heart goes out to you, because I think we can all understand that this is a very peculiar sort of pain. It touches really deep into our hearts, and I don't wish that on anybody. And if you're going through that, just know that Carrie is someone who specializes in that, and there's no need for you to suffer alone. I'm sure you can call her up, and her contact information is going to be below, and you can at least tell her what's going on, and she'll guide you in some way how to improve your situation. At least, at least begin the dialogue, begin the conversation. One of the things that I see in those situations, in relationship abuse sort of situations, one of the things that I see is that the victim tends to shut down. There's a lot of shame in those situations. And so it's difficult to speak it out and to explain to you what's going on, particularly when there's physical abuse. There's a lot of shame involved, So if you identify with any of these and you're listening to us right now, reach out to Carrie, have a talk with her, explain to her what's going on, let her show you what some of the options that you have available to you are. I'm sure that you're going to thank yourself for making the phone call, because it's going to improve the quality of your life. Pat, Patricia, I want to ask you a question. We've had a healthy conversation here about hypnosis, the three of us, the four of us, and as is expected and as is natural, we have different opinions and different ways of doing things, which is perfectly awesome. But I want to hear from you. What is one thing you heard from Carrie that you find that you learned a new thing from her, that you admire something she said, and then I want to hear something that Eugene said that you found particularly insightful or helpful to you?
Yes, well, everything that I've heard has been helpful and insightful. And Carrie, I get a sense, because we were talking about pre-talk. Part of that is about getting rapport and getting people to trust you and be comfortable with you. Both Carrie and Eugene, just within the first minute or so of hearing either of them talk, I feel like I could pour out my heart to them. I felt a sense of trust and a connection. I think that is so important. And Carrie, I can tell she's a wonderful listener. I can tell she's a wonderful listener that really respects where her client is coming from. She talked about using their words and all those kinds of things. And I just get a sense that she is just a heartfelt practitioner that can really connect with the people that come to her for help. And that's something I don't think you can teach somebody. I think that's a natural trait that you just have, that personal connection and that heart, like you said, that love that you show through just the way you approach your work.
Absolutely
it's
agree.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Absolutely agree. Tell me something about Eugene. I mean, I think he did a great job of.
Yeah, Eugene, I'm sensing that he has just an amazing wealth of research and study that he has put into this. I don't know anything about him. I didn't know him before tonight that I don't remember ever meeting him or seeing him anywhere. And again, that personal touch, the fact that much like as at the forefront of me, that there's no cookie cutter approach. No preconceived idea. This person has, let's see, like some other professions, helping professions, by virtue of the way they're designed, is they look you up in the book, the DSM or whatever it is, and they say, oh, there's a check mark. Okay, here's what we do with these people, and put them in that box. And I love that. And neither of you do that. I can tell that most people in this field don't do that. But Eugene, I get a sense that he's really big on individualized, in the moment. What is happening right now? How can we get the person to think about it in a different way? In hypnosis, we talk about reframing all the time, and gaining a different perspective on my problem from the way I've been thinking about it, which usually is making people feel a little bit more victimized. And how can I think of it in a way that gives me some power over at least that part of it, so that I can start to loosen up and breathe, and my stomach can process the food and whatever, and I'm not getting the headaches and I'm sleeping better. All these little nice side benefits of hypnosis. We show them how to think about it in a way. And I get that Eugene's really good at kind of gently getting the person to think of things differently in a way that allows them to start getting movement on whatever their issue is. And that's the starting point. That's that top of the iceberg that Carrie was talking about, right? You start to chip away at it.
Yes, I totally agree. And Eugene and I had a few conversations prior to this program, and I completely concur and agree with you. He was, his insightfulness and the questions that he asks, and also his generosity in being here tonight and helping out and talking and sharing his knowledge with us. I thought that was awesome. Carrie, I'm curious. What is one thing that we learned from Patricia today, and also from Eugene? What are some things that we can admire about both of these fabulous hypnotists?
Well, I love how Patricia does the medical side, and that does truly fascinate me. And I really enjoyed how she talked about I was doing this before I knew what I was doing. And I was the same exact way. I mean, I even posted a YouTube video where I was trying to pass this test, and I would imagine myself in this room, and I saw the monitor tell me, "Congratulations, you got a score of 86." And I actually got a score of 86. And that was before I was even a hypnotist. So I loved that. And but I love the aspect of the medical thing, because we do have wisdom within us to heal our bodies. We do have the resources and the tools. I mean, when we get a cut and we get a scrape, our body knows exactly what to do, how to, coagulate the blood, how to form a scab, all of that stuff. And so I always find that so fascinating when when we guide a person to plant that seed within themselves, that they believe, I have this power within me, that I can do this for me. So that's what I took away from Patricia, that I found most profound. And I humbly bow to her for what she does. It is truly a gift.
Oh, Patricia's like a goddess to me. I mean, and not just to me, to everybody in the field. She's like a reference. She's like the go-to person when it comes to hypnosis. So I totally agree with what you said, and I completely second that. What about Eugene?
Yeah.
Eugene is a surprise. How awesome he is.
Yes, he has a very gentle, nice, welcoming presence.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, we are the last one they come to. And I always say, no, we should be the first one to come to. But we are honestly the last one. Out of desperation, they come to us. And so it is nice to see and connect to someone that has that presence of, I'm going to be this safe space for you, and I'm going to listen to you, and let me formulate a way to where we can achieve the goals that you are seeking to achieve. And that's what I really took away from Eugene, that I thought was very good and beautiful and humbling in a way, because it does create that safe space. It does create congruency and trust and respect that then allows the client to open up and fully express themselves without the walls, without the filters, because they've probably been, as we've all know, in therapy for years. And then they come to us and it's like, holy cow. And I hear this all the time. I should have done this sooner. I should have done this sooner. And it's like, but there's no better time than the present.
Agreed. Eugene, you heard what this fabulous hypnotist had to say about you. Tell me something about them, how awesome they are. What do you think? What did you learn today?
Oh, I like both of them. And I really like this combination of medical hypnosis and more evidence-based approach of Patty, but also the vastness of spirituality and more, I don't want to call it non-traditional approach, because I think hypnotherapy and therapy in general involves so much that spiritual counseling, spiritual hypnosis, quantum shifting, this is a part of our field. And as someone who is classically trained in the conservative school of psychotherapy and psychology, but also who is deeply spiritual. And by the way, all of many of my professors, they were closeted spiritualists. So they would say one thing during lecture, but then at the end it's but you know what? It's really all about vibration in the soul. So, but we don't say in notes, right? We're not allowed to say that in notes. So, but just so you know, that works. And I think it is such a beautiful synergy. And the specialties that you two work in, like medical hypnosis, this is something that I am absolutely fascinated in, how people with injuries, minor injuries or not so minor injuries, can actually see the inflammation process reduce faster. And also, like when somebody comes to you for neck pain, but then they talk about the grandparents who passed away and they're missing them and there's so much unprocessed trauma, like, oh, like we didn't go, like I didn't mean to go there, but apparently we're going there because our body communicates to us and carry the relationship stuff and the when it comes to narcissism, right? Like narcissistic personality disorder, it is a tough disorder for a person who carries it, but also for other people who experience that person. This is a very complicated diagnosis, and it's just. And this is what I often talk about on my podcast as well. We need specialists. And when you know your lane and when you pick your lane or lanes, and so people know that you are the go-to person. So both of you have wonderful energy, wonderful experience. It was so nice to like really see different approaches. For like one approach, like medical, scientific, and another, well, let's go to past lives and your reincarnation. So like, yes.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Eugene. I want to say a word to you who is listening to us right now. And I want to bring your attention to how generous Patricia, Carrie, and Eugene have been with their time, with their knowledge, with their wisdom, with their experiences. And I think it's fair to say that all of that generosity is at your service. In other words, these are professional hypnotists, people who've been doing this for many, many years. But we actually enjoy participating in your transformation. We actually enjoy doing this. And I say this because sometimes a person might be listening to a group of hypnotists and they might be thinking, I guess I could lose some weight, or maybe I should quit smoking, or maybe I should address this or that problem, but maybe not. Maybe I don't deserve it. Would that be something that perhaps runs through your mind, deep in the recesses of your unconscious? I don't know. I'm here to tell you that whatever it is that you're facing, you deserve to improve on it. And dare I say, it may not be that difficult if you have the proper guidance, the proper help, the proper wisdom. And these are individuals who made it their life's mission to help you solve a problem, transform, heal, overcome difficulties, right? So they've done this for years and years and years. And chances are they can also help you. So this is not about promoting anyone or anything. This is about having a talk heart to heart with you if you're listening to us. And you might be in a situation where you're on the edge. You're thinking, well, I guess I do need a change in my life, but maybe it's okay. Maybe I can continue living like this. I would encourage you to call any one of these hypnotists and say, look, this is what's going on with me. What do you think? Can we work on this? Have a talk with them, because you might be surprised. Number one, it might be simpler than you think. Number two, you might be a lot happier. You might be a lot better off after the process than you are now. And it's worth a conversation, right? So my suggestion is go to the bottom of the show notes and get their contact information, have a talk with them, and let's see what can happen. And I would love to have you, if you're listening to us, come back later in this program and tell us what your experience has been. I think that would be awesome to hear from you. I want to thank the three of you, Patricia, Carrie, Eugene. I want to thank you profusely for your generosity, for your wisdom. And I want to say something strange. Somehow I feel compelled to thank you for choosing to be a hypnotist. I personally think this is the most wonderful profession in the world. And I don't know, my heart is, I feel happy to be in your presence. And I want to thank you for having made that choice. I'm sure you could have chosen other professions, but you chose this one. And I'm immensely proud of all three of you for having made that choice and for doing the work that you do. So thank you so much, and mega blessings to the three of you. And I can't wait to continue this conversation next week with you guys and continue this conversation. Thank you so much.